Here we are on Polarity. Previous title, Cray, you were suggesting may have been on a drug of choice or otherwise. And like, what does polarity mean? Knowing that you and Lisa have spent a significant chunk of your lives really investigating this and like supporting people through their relationships to polarity and seeing some of the significant difference it's made in my life when I lean more into that. I'd love to explore more of that and both like a dialogue as well as a set of experiences that I have with it. Both Cray and Lisa have been excellent at setting us up for. Um, that's some of the context of what I have in mind. And there's some other broader context that Lisa's just been spending some time here this last week. Um, and a couple days ago, Lisa shared a really beautiful moment during a just like open, unguided experience where someone wasn't giving as much of the masculine structure or direction as she would have liked. And it was like a really beautiful way that she shared the impact that I could see the impact of like not stepping more into like masculine polarity and offering direction and structure for people in my life. Um, and so I want to platform more moments like that in my life and in this world, and yeah, to share some of that. And here we are. Having said this, um, I'm wondering, yeah, Lisa and Cray, you're open to sharing a little bit about your relationship to polarity and what that means to you. I know that you guys have a lot more experience in this. It's still something I'm feeling like I'm still beginning to grok more of. And yeah, what comes up for you when someone says, what does polarity mean to you? Or how do you practice polarity in your own lives?
Oh,
Well, I'm going
first
to
of all,
assume that, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, Lisa.
I was going to
All
say that
you.
I'm sure Cray has a lot more experience even than I do, and I don't have any idea of Cray's perspective, of your perspective on polarity. So I'd love to be oriented, if you wouldn't mind sharing first.
Ooh, you're good. You're good. If anybody asks me about polarity, first of all, I'm like, Jesus, I'm dealing with one of those. You know, it's like, which do you prefer? You prefer the Chinese heroin or the Ethiopian heroin? And I'm just like, really, seriously? You're stuck back in that belief system that there's this real thing that happens that's not culturally bound and not bound up with your psychopathology and being special and being la 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 la. Then it's like, then you have to figure out where it is they're coming from, what it is they're talking about. You know, most people are doing the polarity thing so they can feel special, so they can not feel like a piece of shit, that they can feel like they're a trophy, that they can get a trophy. So it's become, our version of spiritual materialism. And people think that, oh, there's a formula here, there's an answer here. If I'm not doing this, it's because you're doing that, or you're not doing that. And that being said, I mean, having polarity can be a lot of fun, but it's you know, if you want to chase that state, that's fine. You have to figure out what the monocultures are, what the rules are, what the biases are, and you can play with that forever and have a really fun time. Be high as a kite. Oh, Lisa.
Ooh, what an opening.
Oh, that was great. I definitely see that we come from different places in polarity, which is beautiful. And I guess what I would share about my perspective on is I think that polarity and the application of it, like all other things that I see as first principles, when applied by human beings, are often kind of flattened. And when they're flattened, they're misunderstood. Because we can't we have to flatten them in order to work with them. So there's a cost. But the truth for me is that polarity isn't just masculine and feminine polarity. Polarity is across the spectrum of all things in in our human experience in this world, and that all the polarities are like this and that and everything in between. So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about the way polarity is used, maybe because it's gotten popular or because there are people speaking about it. But for me, polarity, like most things, is just a language and a starting point. But I've found it to be a really enriching way of thinking about teasing out more definition and nuance from all the gray, that the way that we often experience life. Like our human fear makes us make everything kind of even and the same and gray. And the experience of perspectives around polarity for me are ways to make more shades. So you have black and you have white and you have all the grays in between, all the shades in between. So for me, that's the conversation of polarity, my perspective on it.
I'm trying to apply this somehow to my experience in this very moment and wonder if, Lisa, you could offer, can I do something in the next 30 seconds for me to experience polarity somehow? Anything?
Well, I mean, like, I think the starting point, I think the assumption is we're talking about masculine, feminine, sexual polarity and intimacy, which is a realm that I do like to play in. And I do think you can be really high with it. Like Cray was saying, I think there's a lot of, like, it's a choice to play in that realm, and it has a lot of elevated experience. But my question to you, if you ask that, is what aspect of polarity are you interested in? Because polarity is much broader than just masculine, feminine, sexual polarity.
And I'm trying to really kind of see, is there something that you can pull out of thin air and point me to, where if I did it right now, I would experience, it doesn't have to be masculine, feminine, but at least maybe something that still speaks to the experience of polarity. And you're muted.
You're muted.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what I could ask is like a place to explore polarity would be where you feel muted, you know? So if, for example, like I'm a speaking coach, and so if people are muted in their expressions because they're speaking always in one dimension, then I might work with them on the polarity of quiet and loud, or fast and slow, in order that they have more of a dynamic range, and then they become more enlivened and more full expression of themselves in the world. So my orientation is always for expanding range. So I think, I don't know you. I don't think we've even met before, maybe. So I guess it would be, I'd have to like find a little bit more, but like where's that muted place for you to expand polarity for yourself?
Are you
And maybe you
wearing
have an
lace-up
instinct on that.
shoes? Jokin, are you wearing
Oh,
lace-up shoes?
well, they have laces, but they're slip-ons.
Okay,
So
we'll
it's
take one of
cheating.
the shoes and make it as tight as you can stand.
Okay.
And welcome to polarity. I'm serious.
Yeah, no, like, and I'm doing it because I really want to kind of see what's the experience in the moment of something that someone can point me to, right? That's kind of like I'm trying to get to feeling it, not talking about it.
You don't have the vocabulary. It's like
There you go.
if I had given Alton a taste of that whiskey, I don't think he would have appreciated it. He doesn't have the vocabulary. And that's my story. So now as you're sitting there, one foot should be very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I can somehow feel like the pressure on the blood vessels at the top, and like it's kind of feeling
Right.
almost like cutting into that.
Right. So then feel both sides of your legs, how they connect into your pelvis, and then let that come up. See what happens. Notice what your attention is being drawn to. So in your world, Lisa, is there a magnetism or a force or a dynamic between the black and the white?
Yeah, I think there is. It is like a dance. Um, it's a dance or an integration. But I guess that's a bit of an abstract answer. Let me see if I can be more concrete in my understanding of your question. I think actually magnetism and dynamicness is the essence of what's available in exploring polarity between one pole and the other and everything in between. That it is a dynamic experience.
No, it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
You can slice
Say
and
more.
dice it and nuance it, and it remains as lifeless as cold cuts. But it's the
Oh, but
experience. It's the experience of the aliveness, the
yes,
correspondence between the two.
yes, I concur with that.
Okay.
Absolutely. That if you're only talking about one point in the range and the continuum between two poles, then that's not polarity. That's just one gray point. The polarity is the range of exploration between the two and the dance between them and the integration of them instead of just generalizing them and making it all one big mush. So to me, the nature of that, the essence of that is dynamic and is magnetized.
Moving to a different point on the continuum with the 1 foot, I can definitely feel some relief.
You probably weren't noticing the feeling of your shoes before Cray had you
No, exactly,
create
exactly. It
polarity.
was just like nothing. It was, well, why would I?
Because it's just gray. It's just a gray somatic experience then without the polarity.
Yep.
There's
And it's
nothing to
kind of like,
notice.
um, well, most of the time I feel there's many parts of my experience that, and it's both sad and pathetic and very practical oriented. If I abstract it away by making it fall into the background, I can focus on other things. But by not focusing on those parts of experience, I'm much less embodied. And so it's sad that if I want to be efficient as a information processor, it is beneficial to be as little embodied as possible in that moment. And I always lose out.
Well, I disagree with this. I imagine that by recontextualizing where you process from or like feeling through your body, that there's like a lot more wisdom in this whole set of sensations.
Maybe like I would love to hear an example, Alton, for what were pointing to just now.
I make up that there's an argument for a small mind around the righteousness of like an ego that's tiling the world with information through really small word labels versus relaxing into the big mind state of awareness and continual slosh of sensations that we're wading through moment by moment. And there's so much more that can be tapped into there that is much more information rich than anything we'll ever be able to wrap words around.
Yeah, if I ever reach that state, I think no, I'm not at the finish line, but for instance, currently at my work, I'm doing some kind of medical record transfer between two systems. And if I imagine I'm feeling my 2 feet having differently tightened laces at that moment, somehow the story that I'm having going on is it would make it much harder for me to actually do a good job with that particular task.
Sure. For roboticized cog-like tasks, if
Yep.
we are smushing ourselves into being meat ground machines to up numbers in certain ways, then, but
And
I mean, I don't know if this is the thread or the context of the conversation I want to be like
no, no,
living
no,
life
no.
in.
I would say, well, that's almost a polarity in itself. It's like how much do I feel my body at any given moment? Like not at all, or like as much as possible. But um, I have it that in the 21st century, much of what humans are instructed to do is to get away from their bodies to be more efficient with some kind of information processing, and that it's a terrible thing. That's what I'm saying, right? I would rather prefer that we would have some
Sure.
kind of
I don't,
culture.
yeah, I just don't understand why we'd be
Yeah.
talking to it then if that's not the thing we want.
Yeah. Well, to at least for
Well,
me to identify it, to have the awareness that the thing that I do want is almost the ability, Lisa and Craig, to maybe, or all what you were saying, to be in the big mind, to have the ability to feel my body and still do the things that are part of this kind of bigger dance. Not that I have yet figured out how to do it.
I personally have it that it's in the dance between both of those two things, those two poles being integrated in you. That is where the richness is. So that if you're somatic and your body experience can inform the ideation process and vice versa, that there's like super richness, juiciness, and like aliveness in that. And
Yeah, I'm wondering how to bring that.
I think dancing with that is a practice because I don't think it is the focus in our world. I think we've been so focused on specializing in one area or one another. We end up taking some point along the spectrum of polarity instead of actually being alive in the dance between the poles. And I think that being in the head versus being in the body and them informing each other is a really good example of that.
Yeah, I'm leaving generally with a hunger to be able to invoke more polarity dances and dynamics in day-to-day life. And I'm wondering what that could look like to lean more into that. I think it just seems like leaning into more crisp leadership or offering crisp structure and inferring people's needs and
And
desiring connection with them and owning that moment by moment.
I take it maybe one of the reasons, Alton, that you're so well enjoying company of Cray and enjoying probably company of Lisa is that they both say that they're like to increase range. I mean, I take it, Cray, from like the dojo video that's on your website explaining about dojo, that expanding range is really one of the major benefits of doing something like dojo hang.
Can be. It can. Oh, wait a minute, am I muted?
You can hear you now.
It can be. Doesn't have to be. There's no necessity. You guys are all talking like there's an actual place to get to that. If we're all good human beings and we want to do the good thing about becoming better or becoming, little angels or whatever, there's a place that we have to get to, and it looks like this, and the components are this, and there's a certain level of polarity. If that's what you want, that's what you want. I mean, but don't make it about this is what humans should be.
I miss the should be, but I say good, obviously good, bad is another polarity. And if there's a belief that you have to be in one particular place on the spectrum, on the spectrum of good and bad, then you're back to stuckness instead of range, instead of seeing the whole diverse range of the both poles and everything in between, because that is the true nature of who we are, is the whole spectrum. So
It's not.
if in fact, okay, say more.
It's not. That's the potential. I can go into a classroom of kindergartners, and I'm going to take all the things that I could do, and I'm going to narrow it down because I think that these are kindergartners. So this idea that we're trying to increase our broadness to encompass everything, that's just, you're blowing smoke. The point is what are the achievements that you want to have in your life? What are the places you want to go? What are the experiences you want to have? If that entails having a broader range, broader vocabulary, fine. If it might mean you need to narrow yourself down, that's fine. Who cares?
I mean, here's a great meta example of polarity. What the perspective that Cray is taking is one side of a polarity, which is you need to focus in and be one pointed focus in order to head in the direction you want. And I'm taking more of a like this. It's more my nature, right? Is to be what's the broader perspective? Like, how do you be inclusive? And I'm not making that wrong, Craig. To me, this is just the beauty of polarity, is that there's something that can be had from having that one pointed focus, but it is a different place in the polarity from where I'm coming from. And, you know, probably it has some masculine feminine aspect to it on some level, in some kind of way. But I don't make it wrong. And I think that's the way that I see it. It's like the vast spectrum all has something to add. And I include it all. Whereas I think from what I'm understanding, I make it mean, or my story is that Craig's really advocating for like being more like true to the point for the purpose of serving. And they're both,
Do you include Jeffrey
they're both
Dahmer?
places.
Do you
I
include
don't,
serial killers, rapists, you know,
I mean, we can
people
go
who burn
into a
down
philosophical,
buildings?
we can go into a conversation about like, you know, moral relativism or something, but I don't think that's as useful to the actual moment right now. But
So
I
let's
don't know.
narrow it down as to what we think is beneficial for the moment. Rather than playing with what comes up, Jeffrey Dahmer, let's say, oh, no, no, no. That might upset somebody. Let's narrow it down contextually and keep it on the straight and narrow, because there's an audience out there that we need to be approved of by or served by or some. I personally, I don't care what anybody does with them, whatever. But I like the instead of like, oh, I'm all inclusive and everything's welcome here. I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're
That's
not.
a total that's a complete misinterpretation of what I'm saying, just so you know.
Yep. Good. And so I'm interested in where are the boundaries? What are the things that you will not talk about, that you will not dance with? You know, I want to find the edges of Lisa. I want to find out what's over here on the edge of your box. This stuff in the center, you do really well.
It's not about center. We're talking about polarity is different from center. In fact, polarity is the antidote and the medicine to center. So that means that you can take a
Antidote
post on
and the
any
medicine.
yeah.
Center. Okay.
You know what? I'm actually not interested in having a conversation that has the tone of like, I'm right, you're wrong. We have to fight to get to an answer. I'm definitely open to a conversation that's about understanding, but that's why I say I'm not really open to coaching, because that's not my mode of growth or the way that I like to interact. So just totally happy to have a conversation and really want to hear what you have to say and understand your perspective, but not really interested in the fight version of it. And I also am willing to bow out, because maybe that is the tone that is intended in this collective, which I can totally respect. I think there's a place for that, absolutely. And when people buy into it, can be really powerful.
What would work for you, I'm hearing, is like a more gentle towards exploration, Lisa. Like, I'm wondering what type of context would bloom.
I'm not just personally interested. If other people want to participate, I'm happy to observe or leave or whatever, but I'm personally not interested in a tone that says, like, that has a sort of condescension. What I hear as I have the story that I experience as kind of a condescending tone. So maybe it's just about tone, but I think it actually goes deeper than tone. And like I say, there's a place, and sometimes people really want to buy into that kind of growth mode, but it's just not my choice.
Well, yeah, I'm interested in what would bloom you, knowing and having seen you experience this and practice this both within our home and seeing the types of connections that are available in your presence in this home. I'm like, well, yeah, I want to continue blooming that. And I'm personally interested in using some of like the dojo type frames that Cray has shared with me to take more of that on as a default way of being in my life to evoke your blooming and flourishing in these ways. So that's my listening of the shape of this.
I guess I don't know if it's useful, but what I will share, the invitation I think was like where your edges, or I won't even take it to edges. I'll just say my experience. So my experience is that I, as a feminine being, this is part going towards the conversation Cray and I had before, is there needs to be a certain kind of listening. Like we talked about fertile listening when I was there. How fertile listening is that when you're listened to and held in a way that the best of you, the richest part of you, the most impactful part of you can't help but show up and bloom and be contributed. And my orientation is like that. And I think it's just a very different orientation from Gray's. And neither one is right or wrong. It's just that they serve different purposes when applied at the right time and when people buy into them. So like, yeah. So I make it mean, or I assume I have a story that when I bring this perspective that is mine, that um Cray wants to turn it into right or wrong. Like that's that, you know, and I just don't see it that way. So I think we just see things slightly differently. And like I say, I think they both have powerful applications, but they're just different
And
perspectives, and they exist on a polarity.
I'm curious, Lisa, if your experience of the past few minutes when you use the words right or wrong, is that like because what in my own experience when I started having calls with Cray, I certainly had that framing that some of what I heard Cray do or saw him do landed with me as like, ooh, that feels wrong. It just felt offensive, or it felt, like too much force, something like that. And by now it feels more, I take your what you offer, saying you want to call forth in people blossoming through space holding. And I can totally see that in my life I've had those experiences. And then I see Cray as calling forth through having a spinning
For
top, and then
storage.
and well,
Well,
you just tap it, and then by virtue of the tap, it actually needs to gain more internal stability because it needs to contend with an external force in a certain way. And those
yeah,
are,
and
I
then
agree, those
those are
are
great.
two different modalities. Yeah.
They're just different modalities, and
Yeah.
I don't make it wrong. I just am saying that it's not my mode. It's not where I
Yeah.
grow.
Yeah.
It's
But
just, I
I'm,
choose not to participate in it. That's all. And it doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make it useful for other people. I'm
yeah,
not a very masochistic person, so I like to grow through more gentle ways.
fair enough. Um,
Yeah, I'll name it as like more
Like
sensation
you got to
seeking.
pleasure dom me. I'm not a masochist. I want the pleasure dom.
Yeah, I guess I'll just share a little for me. Yeah, like I wonder for me to really learn, if my guard's up and I'm feeling defensive, it's really different than if you know, I feel like my guard's come down and then I'm staring, more openly at whatever I'm struggling with or whatever, wherever I'm at. But yeah, maybe just different, these are different approaches. Very interesting.
I'm
so at
wondering
least
where
my,
there's overlap. I still imagine that there's a way that I could bridge these worlds and still have a world that we are evoking with fertile listening the best versions of each other, and that we can use a dojo style or format way of doing that. And a lot of the come from that I've had from a lot of the dojo world is who can I be such that it evokes more of the life that I want to have in connection with everybody in my life. And this
Um,
seems like a perfect context to practice that.
so the conversation that happened the other day with Josh and Felix and me,
Mhm.
I felt like that was an example of that. Like Josh was playing a particular role with Felix,
Hmm.
and I was playing a different role with Felix. And he wasn't making me wrong. I wasn't making him wrong, but they both served something coming from different places. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I experienced that to be what you're talking about. Josh approached it in a completely different way than I would have. And it was kind of like, yeah, it was kind of like good cop, bad cop, good, polarity here, polarity there. And how do they interface,
So this kind of speaks to maybe a polarity for me and all this. Like, I think I struggle somewhat to like be. I like to. I have instincts or tendencies to just meet people where they're at and like join their way of approach. So if we want to, you know, but what I'm trying to say with the polarity is, I wonder, is there, a way to, is it possible like be in our being how we want to show up and other people how they're showing up and Lisa's saying, here's how I'm inclined to approach it this kind of way. Can those both be in the same space, you know? And I'm asking that kind of for myself.
I think when they are in the same space, that's where it's most powerful. And I'll give you an example from my personal life. When I was married and raising kids, mm, I didn't really understand some aspects of polarity, and I made wrong my kid's dad for the way he was parenting. And he was parenting them in a way that they needed, but I didn't see because I couldn't see from in it. I was in more of a gray, like there is good parenting instead of there's impact and benefit from both polarities being contributing. And I now see, and if I had seen then, I would have recognized that I was playing a mothering role, and my mothering role was perfectly valid and fine and contributive and created healthy kids. And his role was more of a challenger, growing role that was also needed for their growth. But I didn't see it that way. So at the time, I couldn't see that the power of that polarity. I was more seeing the gray, and I think I did damage from that not knowing. So that's an example of where I think it can be different roles if they respect each other, if they honor each other, that different perspectives can have an impact. But when they start to be like, you're wrong, that you don't know what you're talking about, like, which is what I'm just giving as an example of what I think I did to my husband, it becomes damaging instead of healing. So I hope that makes sense why I'm sharing that.
What would
And it
you share
certainly,
to your past self to have heard that more fully?
Say it one more time. I think I
How could you
your
communicated that to your past self?
I mean, my past self didn't know. I've had to go through my own reconciliation process, forgiveness, healing, repair process for myself. And I think I still have some elements of that with my kids. I mean, and I'm talking about subtleties here, you know. I don't know. My past self didn't know it. So, you know, what I would say to other parents, or say sometimes I see women who are parenting and they're making their partners wrong for the um, dangerous aspect they're bringing or the intense aspect they're bringing. I say no. Try to give them the insight, you know, by maybe telling them that story, but letting them know that there's a role, and it's in the honoring of the role of the other where you can get the integration and the healing of both. So maybe I just try to pay it forward instead of I can't retrospectively fix it as much as I try to repair it little by little.
I'm still left with wondering how I can bring this more into our day-to-day in our community home and in my life and like regular calls, polarity work in general, where I have it. Lisa, you had a certain listening of calling forth like masculine polarity or structure or offering that, and you like really like lit up about it and emphatic about that when you did receive that guidance or that structure. And yeah, I'm wondering how it could be done more day to day and or like other business contexts. What might that look like?
I'm not sure when you're referring to. Are you talking about the meeting with Shatil the other night? Not
Yeah,
sure.
that would be an example. You had some
Oh,
radical ownership of your desire on what you wanted, and also you were present to the pain of not receiving that structure, that guidance, and you let that show through. And I have it that for like those that had the ears to hear that they could see that and articulate that in a and that led to some like group catharsis. And yeah.
yeah. So I personally have it that there's a lot of beauty and healing in the full feminine expression. And that's what I was working with you and JJ with the other day. Like, how do you hold the space for her full feminine expression? Um, but the discerning feminine only allows that out when there's safety.
Mm.
And that's why I was working with you to create groundedness in your receiving of it. Um, I don't know in terms of bringing it into daily life. I think it's about embodiment. I think it starts with embodiment. You know, can you breathe deeply? You know, are you relaxed? is your body open but structured, you know? And is the feminine have like space to flow? Like I'm talking about like specifics around embodiment because I think you want to bring it into day-to-day life, it has to start there. It has to start with how you're breathing, how you're holding your body, what your body structure is. Yeah, and that's a very tiny little answer, but hopefully it's starting.
Yeah. And then I'm interested in Cray and how I can bring more of that to like a background of dojo things, or how you see that across the community. Like there's a certain flavor. Okay, like Mike Kabjan has a certain flavor of polarity and also like comfort in his body. Well, he's also like extremely directive. Um, so I'm like, yeah, well, Cray, how do you relate to what Lisa just shared, and like having that be a runnable practice that more people can relax into or just take on?
I'm questioning my understanding of polarity versus duality. And so what I hear when I hear Lisa talking, I think I hear her, from my perspective, talking a lot about duality. About, oh, there's a socket and a plug. And for these kinds of sockets, you need these kinds of plugs. You know, for the feminine to do whatever it is, they need to feel whatever, you know, that's a description of, not from my point of view, that's not a description of polarity. That's a description of duality. And so for me, I'm just sitting with that right now. It's like for what she just said about JJ or whatever, and listening to her describe it, it's like, oh, you need to configure yourself in a certain way such that JJ can maximalize or whatever the terminology is. And so for me, that's not polarity. Polarity to me is the tingle, is the friction, the push pull, the the tingle. That's the best. So, and if you're talking about practices about how do you get better fits to get things done, then that's a whole nother range. That's a whole nother things to talk about. So that's just what I've been sitting with. And then it's like oh, theoretically, for the feminine to express itself, it has to feel safe. Except those feminines who have stepped beyond the duality of safety, unsafety. So then that's a whole nother thing. How do you so there are these, anybody can meditate in a temple. That's what they're set up for. They're set up to, can you meditate in a temple, in a marketplace? So it's easy to love somebody when they're being nice. It's easy to bring forth your stuff when it's safe. Can you do it when the bullets are flying? And I'm all for kindergarten and beginner schools to where people can get a handle on this stuff and a taste for it. Let's do it in the safety of this sacred place or this whatever. And if that's where you want to play, that's fine. I personally like it when there's a little bit more like, meditating when the bullets are flying. Counterphobic 6, it's understandable.
And I'm wondering, Alton, whether at some point you probably have explained to Lisa about like avocado and everything, because that for me is that I certainly in this type of virtual conversational context on Zoom, to really understand that I am safe in part because I can call for safety, like literally in the moment, and say, if I feel emotionally at my limit, here's exactly the word that I can use, and then the other side will back off, at least for the moment. And then they can come at me and pummel, because I know if I need to get into my corner and the other person will no longer come at me further, that's the word to use.
Thank you.
And it took me a while to kind of connect with that deeply enough to then feel, okay, now I get it. Like I feel that.
Well, since you mentioned my name, I'll just say that thanks for your I appreciate your concern, your desire for me to understand that more deeply. And I feel that like what I'd say for myself in response to that is I feel pretty sovereign in my ability to to respond to my own boundaries. And I and for the pummeling part, it wouldn't enter into a scene where someone pummels me without a very clear conversation in advance. But I don't, that's not my necessarily my starting point with people. I want to know who they are, what the relationship is, what our agreements are, to invite pummeling. That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you at the very least, I would want to know the other person will in fact honor the safety word. Otherwise, it's probably not safe to think, oh, I have one, and then the other person will just like keep going anyway.
So Craig, just to say what I heard you say, your invitation is, hey, do you want to explore meditation with some bullets flying? Is that kind of what you're saying?
I take a breath here. I've been really sick, so I have a really, really tiny fuse. Would you like to experience what it is to be human without all of the prejudicial beliefs you have about what safety is or isn't? I mean, for me, it's like it's. I mean, I'm granted, I'm old school. I'm like, fine, yes, you have a PTSD response come up when you're looking at this little box on a TV set, but your rational mind should be able to say, there's no real threat here. There's nothing dangerous going to happen. I can be flooded with stress hormones or with stress analysis or whatever, and this is a perfect place to practice. Yes, this is happening. And would you please sit down over here? And I'm going to do something different now. Which for me, I need to go take some meds and put some logs on the fire. It's 20 degrees outside, so I'll be back in a couple minutes.
Well, to what you just raised, Steve, I think what I'd say is like we have to all identify our, our own space for how and where we want to grow, and there's all different ways to do it, um, all different ways to see reality. And like I know for myself, I trust people who can titrate. Like attunement is super important to me. And I will open if I feel there's an attunement to my opening. And if I don't, then I'm going to stay here and I'm still available, but my availability is different. And then as far as the safety piece that Cray was just talking, I agree with him. We have a, we, we have a, like, well, I agree with him. Okay. Like all words, right? Words are limiting for us human beings because we take a word and we make meaning of it. And then our meaning is the meaning that we think is the meaning, but it's really only our meaning. And I think safety is something that can be a little bit misused or misinterpreted, or so I don't know. I do want to expand the thinking on what it means to be safe. And I want to put out that what I say I need to feel safe, it might be different from what you mean when you say you need to feel safe. So yeah, like all fucking words as human beings, right? Like damn, so much, so much story in every single word we use. So put them together and it gets really complex. How's that land
Yeah.
with you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I recognize the only safety I really see is like in almost utter groundlessness. Like it's like, you know, I recognize that, and at the same time I get triggered all very frequently. I feel a lot of things. And so it's interesting to hear Cray's proposal. Like it's true. I want to be out in the world engaging with all sorts of people, and that does involve getting triggered frequently, you know? Like I love like, Lisa, you know, we've connected like I feel it's easy to open up, you know, and I love that. And I feel, at peace there. And then also I recognize that I do want to be out in the world engaging with all sorts of
Yeah.
people and exploring, connecting with them spitting in my face or whatever, like that is, I do feel drawn, like there's passion that wants to engage in that. And so, yeah, I guess I'm sitting
I
here
think
kind
you
of
just do.
excited. Yeah.
I think, yeah, exactly. And I think the key point is the discernment, right? Is the discernment of like, okay, right now I'm resourced. I think someone gave the example. I have about 1 foot in the
Mm,
MDMA, like in the experience of like feeling good, feeling love, feeling warm. Okay, now I can go take a few bullets.
hmm
And where are you in that resourced place? Like, okay, I'm resourced enough that I can take some bullets. Okay, I've taken some bullets. Now I need a little bit of like, healing of my wounds.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I feel infantile in understanding when I need to lick my wounds and whatnot. Like how I learned to be
yeah.
is push, push, push myself. So I'll take a beating, like let's
Yeah,
go.
because
I'll take it.
if you
Yeah.
don't have that discernment, you'll just be re-traumatizing yourself, which is
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
what happens. And then if you keep on doing that, you're basically in a masochistic cycle.
hmm Yep.
Instead of going, oh, hold on a sec, what part of this is me just like wanting to be re-traumatized and wanting to re-injure myself? And what part of me actually needs to take a stance for a little bit of healing so I can go back and take a few more bullets
And expand capacity and
and
whatever.
therefore expand capacity.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. So looking to explore that actively.
What would that look like for you? And I have it, Lisa was describing repetition compulsion, which I imagine that there may be a non-zero amount of happening in these types of containers when done unskillfully.
hmm
There's a familiarity with repeating the traumas of the past, which is commonly what a lot of people call romantic relationshiping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder what it looks like. Meaning, I feel like I'm trying to wanting to explore, getting a sense of okay, I have some wounds. I'm gonna go lick them. Um, like for example, our conversation on Sunday night when you're sharing, Steve, the way I have sensed you is a lot of anxiety, nervousness, almost terror uh, in our interactions. I feel, uh, there's some kind of like wound in acknowledging that. And so I take some time to go be with that and kind of, uh, I don't know, be with it, let it settle and, and feel invigorated to play again and keep exploring. Um, yeah, coming from a background of very little awareness of my body, my default state has been my stomach is tight in knots almost, and so exploring that, relaxing and feeling my stomach has been something I've been doing a lot of the past little while here, and so I don't know, playing with that, that I have some sense of, like give it to me, I can take it, and looking to understand that the nuances there of what when it's helpful to step back because the default is to never step back basically until I'm wiped. Yeah, so
Well, I'm glad we're having this conversation here now. I think
yeah,
that's a very
Yes.
common pattern that I also see parts of myself around and not having the sensors to know when it's good to step back a little bit.
For me, I would say alternate was almost in my experience of my past, the opposite, where I never felt ready to step into it. I never felt ready to step into the bullets because I was always like, oh my goodness, it's going to be so abrasive, so dangerous, so damaging that I better stay away from it. And so I think that is an equally unhelpful stance.
Hmm. Well,
And
it
so
makes
to
sense of
really
all the people we've spoken to that we spend time with each other because we will typically select into our lives people with the coping mechanism opposites of ours or the ones that are identical to ours.
and
So we
so
can continue with blind spotting.
to find precisely this dance where I can go into the bullets and then realize, okay, now's the time to step out and do whatever I need to do. And then, oh, hey, I'm ready again for the next dance. That seems like more something that as a long-term strategy. I think right now, if you ask me, live the life you want to live or make your life the way that you want it to be, it is still more, oh, I want greater capacity for bullets. So at the moment, that is still like I think my desire. But I think in the long term, I'd be happy to say and develop the awareness of like, okay, now is really the time to do something else to then enjoy the bullets with the next merry-go-round.
Yeah, I'm interested in Cray and or Lisa's languaging around like something more nuancing around like dancing with bullets because most often
You
dancing with bullets is
see,
probably fatal and always a bad idea. But like, it's
no,
something.
for God's sakes, do you remember The Matrix?
Mhm.
Remember the last scene? Well, not the last scene, but they're sitting there shooting at him. And what happens? They stop. Then what happens? He takes one out and he looks at it and he says, "How odd. How odd." And then they all drop. They are still exactly what they are. You can hear them hitting the ground. But they have ceased to be the objects that can hurt him. What do you think we're talking about here? Do you think we're talking somebody actually shooting live ammo at you? No, we're talking about people sending memes your way that trigger past experience into believing that something horrific is happening to you. It's not.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And the
That was the
only
perfect example of what I was looking for, more nuancing around it to reframe and contextualize that particular metaphor. I was not present to that being the reference to what you were speaking to.
it's like Jochen is taking a year to do this. That's fine. People take whatever time they want to take. Could he do it in a weekend? Absolutely. Absolutely. But most people don't want to do that. Why? Because they're actually going to come out with bullet holes? No, because they want to believe in their own specialness and their own trauma and their own, their own stories. I can't give up that story. That's defined me for 30 years. Like, fine, go ahead, take your time.
Yeah, Cray, like for me, there's a like intellectual, at least recognition of the emptiness of all the stories, of my sensitivities, um, of the bullets. There's a recognition of the emptiness, and then there's also like even on a one level, like me dealing with my nervous system, like that I'll start to like tighten up or almost shake sometimes, and I'm thirsty to actually not just intellectually, but really realize the emptiness of the whole thing. I'm thirsty for that, you know?
Evidence to the contrary.
Sorry, say more.
If you were really thirsty, you'd be getting a glass of water,
Mm, yeah. So
but
I
you're
think
not.
I think I'm thirsty.
Yeah. And it's a great. Oh, I really
Yeah.
want to go to Tahiti this year. Have you bought a ticket? Well, no, but I want to. Doesn't that count for something?
Hmm.
Doesn't wanting count for something? Well, no, not really. But there you go. You should say.
Yeah. So, or I guess the yeah, you're saying, yeah.
You were really thirsty and it was real to you, you'd get a glass of water.
Yeah. So then I'm
Evidence
sitting
is
here. Yeah, I'm sitting here recognizing that I think I'm thirsty, but my my inability to see it, to face it, to realize it.
no. I think that you have a character that says, "Oh, it's value positive to
Uh-huh.
want this
Yeah.
stuff." Now you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
want
yeah.
and want and want, and everybody around you is going, "Oh my God, Steve wants so much. Oh my God, he's such a good guy. Look at how much he wants." And you structure your life around it, and you go out and you fail, and you go out and you fail. And it's like, yeah. spend a week, and spend 2.5 days in a motel room, drinking water, and you won't be thirsty anymore. Your life is not bugged. These are features. You thirsting for the release and never getting to it is not a bug. It's a feature. It keeps you in your place. It keeps you in your character. You keep listening to this thing that you call I, or your truth, or your authenticity.
Yeah.
Authenticity is being in congruence with a character. You're not born with it. It's something that you learn. It's something that you take in from other people. You being authentic doesn't matter. Daniel Day-Lewis has been authentic in like 5 or 6 different roles, 5 or 6 different, very different things. And that's just a measurement of his acting ability. There's no special holiness to this thing that we call I. My feelings, my thoughts, my history, my prejudices. Who cares? They're giving you the life you want, then fine.
I would interested in hearing both your and Lisa's frames around like I have like from the Matrix, the woman in the red dress challenge frequently recurring in my life where I notice I like will over allocate into relationship land, and then like let that overshadow other things that seem to be more important to me. And I'm wondering what are some more nuanced dances I can take on to still like maintain connection with mission while also being so relationally driven. It does seem like sometimes there is a mutually exclusive effect, and I imagine that there's some practices or reps around that that we could use through the dojo frame or polarity practices that could support in integrating that.
That's I have so many images going on, Alton, right now. So just thank you for that.
And these prompts were pulled from Craig's page that he has like a bunch of movies listed. And one of the questions underneath the Matrix movie reference was like, what is your woman in the red dress?
Sorry, what can you just repeat that? What was that last question you said?
What is your woman in the red dress from the Matrix? Lisa, you and I are extremely relationally based, given how like we probably are some of the top connectors, having run many different events in the Bay Area. And I make up that maybe we can both be too relationally focused or like that has a cost of its own. And then I make up we're no longer serving from a full cup. We're like living on our purpose as much as we are like supporting other people in their things. And then that has snarly carryover effects that don't work in the long run. And I'm interested in developing more nuanced, more granular dials on this, so we can dance through life with greater grace. I'm interested in
I'm,
how
I
polarity
love the
frames
question.
me. Mhm.
Yeah, and I really love the question, and I don't have an answer for it right now. I'm just seeing with the question itself. I think it's a beautiful question, and yeah, curious to know what Freya has to say to you on that.
What's your woman in a red dress, Alton? That's a metaphor. It's a
Yeah,
metaphor. It's not real. It's like, what is it that has you? You're sitting. I mean, this is Steve, okay? This is Steve, and he's on his way to get his drink of water, and he's going to be damned if anything's going to step in his way. And all of a sudden, hi, sweetie, and he's like, "Mwah," and then off he goes. And his character says, "Oh, phew, man, he almost got to the oasis. Can't have that happen." Because if that happens, bad shit will happen. So we gotta make sure we have a couple more of those, lady in the red dresses prepped. And so it's and it's part of being human. And it's like, how do you know what your red dresses are? Well, you know, look back at the time you were trying to walk forward and you got derailed. It's a feature. What is the thing that had you turn sideways? What is the thing that turned you into a witch, a bastard, a logical machine, a lust-driven maniac, Las Vegas bound hedonist? I don't know. And so then you look at it and you say, oh, okay, these are not bugs. They're not bad things. They're just part of the features of my character. I know that when I try to put together an event, that 10 times out of 11, I'm going to have a personal crisis come up the day before. Let's not try to mess with this. Let's just build it in. Okay, Alton, you're going to need on the day before the event, you're going to need an hour with your therapist to get over the thing that's come up with you and your girlfriend. We know that. It's fine. But the trick is identifying them, because a lot of people will have ladies in the red dress show up as logical trauma responses.
Hmm.
How could I not punch that man in the face? He said something bad about, queer iguanas. So,
That's a beautiful practice. What I heard is consider the times in the past where you were really clear about a direction you wanted to move in, and to just notice and inventory the sets of things that I was liable to be distracted by.
Steve, it's happening now. Every single one of us, right? We're in here, and when we start going in a direction that our psychology, our personal psychologies, tell us is dangerous, guess what steps out onto the stage? Our version of a woman in a red dress. We get to be angry, or we get to be sullen, or we get to be, whatever it is. There's a trauma response of some kind. We project out there, and we know how to do that dance. That's a safety valve.
Yeah, no, this resonates a lot. I appreciate it.
As above, so below.
What's that? As above, so below?
It's an old esoteric teaching. As above, so below. The physics stay the same. They just change how they look.
So, Alton, how do you enjoy so far today's call? It feels like, I have to just say, it feels different to me today, and not in a bad way. It's just a very different flavor.
Wait, Johan, why are you're taking us out of this call to now reflect on the call while it's going on?
Yeah.
Is
That
that
sounds
a
like
forbidden
a
move?
34 double D to me.
Yeah, so maybe I'm slow, Cray, but I'm like not understanding something here. We say 34 double. I know I'm appreciative that I'm a fan. What I don't understand. What are we saying? What are you saying?
He's getting into a moment, I think. He's getting into a moment where his psychology says, "Oh, it's getting too personal. There's not enough being said.
Yeah.
We got it's scary. Oh Jesus!" And then he goes, "Alton, Sig Heil." There we go.
Yeah, no, I mean, because I have characters. Yes, what you're this speaks. It resonates, right? There's this character. I want this. I yearn for this. But I'm not. Well, whatever. That resonates, and so I'm not willing to try to move it. that is there, and also I'm not wanting to move away from that. This is like, thank you, yes, you know.
Yeah, fine. Sit there in your beautiful little place where you have your little desires and you have all of your cloaked and all of your unmet needs, and you can feel it all and play with it and massage it and do whatever you want. It's your life. Have fun.
The alternative you're suggesting is
Is hell
live it out
for
loud.
for Steve. Steve thinks that going to Tahiti is going to be a lot of wonderful stuff. Now, when he goes to Tahiti, he's going to find out that he has absolutely no vocabulary, skill set, or dance moves to deal with Tahiti because he's been doing Steve's Southern California for his whole fucking life. And so he's going to get there. He is going to go on a date with Lisa. Okay. Lisa is the embodiment of quite a bit of ecstasy in my world. Okay. And he's going to go, oh my God, I got to go on a date with Lisa. And he's going to get out there on the dance floor with Lisa, and she's going to go, sugar boom, sugar boom, sugar boom. And he's going to go, I have no idea what the fuck to do with this. And then Lisa's going to go, sugar boom, sugar boom, sugar boom. And she's going to look at him. He's like, oh, fuck me. She knows I don't know how to do this. And he's going to say, time for a heart attack. Ah! And conveniently, he'll fall on the dance floor and they'll have to call the EMTs. And that'll be that. You guys think that stepping into these fantasies of yours, these wants and these desires, and magically is going to be this mystical thing? No, it's going to be a hell realm. Okay? You're going to be dancing in a place that you have no experience in. None. Very little.
That's what
And you're going to
practices are in dojo realm, and to scaffold through designing these intentional containers is how I have it. And that's the power.
Go on a date with Lisa. How simple does it get?
I mean, what you're describing, Craig, I feel like that speaks to some of my experiences. It's feeling exactly that. Like I say I go explore something. It is scary. I feel completely lost. But at least from past experiences, then I learned something. But yeah.
Hopefully. But now let's get you out there with whatever this relational fear thing you have. Let's hook you up with somebody. Let's get you in a dance and say, okay, you got three in dojo. There's a 3 speed bump rule. Do something new 3 times. The first time you do it from a wildebeest, just to prove that your head doesn't explode. The second time you try a little bit of nuance, and the third time you're like, oh, I can try something different. And get people to help you. If you're going and exploring caves, you're crazy to go do it all by yourself. Bring some people who know spelunking.
Yeah, I'm having trouble bringing. I can just sit with this in silence, but I'm having trouble bringing these analogies to what I'm saying.
No, you do that really fucking well, Steve. Sitting with things in silence is something you're very good at. You don't need any more practice.
Okay, great. Well, I was thinking more just be respectful to this call and not. But yeah.
Oh, okay.
Please,
be respectful. You probably have a great deal of polishing in that area too. You're good at being respectful.
That's true. Those are both true statements. Thank you. So, well, please, if you can, if you're interested, you're giving me these fancy analogies. Can you speak more directly?
You have a bugaboo about being in a relationship. I don't know what it is. Find the person that sparks that bugaboo, the thing that you fear.
Yeah.
And construct a series of exercises around it to try to get you to have more vocabulary, dance skills, and skill sets.
All right. Well, the good news is someone who seems to spark some of that is named Alton Sun. So, yeah.
Relational stuff?
Yeah.
Curious.
Well, I mean, Craig, come on. You have been showing up to these calls and you're telling the audience that it's the universe telling you that you have to come here. I mean, don't you tell me that you have a little bit of a spark for Alton as well.
No, I do not. Wrong phenotype.
Well, maybe you just don't know exactly where it sits.
Right.
Wait, yes, Craig, what do you when I said I'm talking about Alton, I'm talking about with my interactions with him, the speed he moves, the number of things he's doing, all this, like it ignites something in me, and I get nervous. You know.
Good. Then go set up, ask, go set up some exercises to explore what that is.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if you
All
want to
right.
go crazy, you'll ask Lisa for help. And you'll say, hey, I want to set up a series of exercises. I'm interacting with Alton, and I need some help in staying in my body in the face of him. And I'm going to ask him to do these specific things because those things drive me freaking crazy. And I notice that when I go crazy, I tend to go up and to the back. That's not helping. So I want you to be there, Lisa. I want you to walk me through this at a very slow level and keep me in my bodily experience. And hopefully you come out of it with more wizzy wazzy woo.
Okay, yeah, and one, I mean, Lisa Alton, if you are willing, I would love that specifically. Two, just to get this kind of broader point, Craig, what I hear you saying is, I started off saying how I want to, I'm thirsty. What I said was, I'm thirsty to realize bullets are flying and they're empty, right? That's where I started. And then we went down, this is a character, yada, yada, yes. So now what you're saying, Craig, is,
When it's
can I set up?
time, you won't have to. But first, you got to get shot up a bit. You can't go from bullets being real to bullets being unreal. There has to be steps. And so you're going to have to put yourself in a situation to where you're undergoing a tremendous amount of pain. Because things are going to come up in the face of Alton with Lisa sitting there saying, breathe, breathe, let it come up, let it overwhelm you. It's okay. I'm right here with you. Your anchor is here. I will not let go of you. And you're going to go through a tremendous amount of something. And on the other side of it, you'll go, shit, I've been carrying that for 30 fucking years. And the
I'm
next
hearing,
time,
Craig, your invitation to generate some of the stuff from the how to craft an exercise from your page and to create that and have Steve enroll Lisa and myself in that.
that would be not in the moment. That seems pretty ideal. I mean, Lisa is good at what she does. Don't base, don't look at our different, levels of heat, and say, oh, no, she's really good at what she does. I have no, that is not in doubt. In my world, her ability to act as an anchor is exquisite. Not only act as an anchor, but also to be along the line to offer accelerants in a way or deepenings. I think she's really good at that too. Be careful.
Craig, do you have thoughts? Maybe this is not your comparative advantage, but do you have thoughts around how to structure that so it's super juicy and also sustainable for Lisa as well? Where I know that this is like her main thing, and negotiating or handling a bunch of operational things around like creating a space for that and then having people have energetic buy-in for that or doing that like at scale or with other people has been a consistent bottleneck within community
The
where
practice
everyone has
is
a different flavor of coin. Yeah.
the dojo master doesn't teach everybody. Okay, that's why you have subordinates. Lisa can't do it all. That's not the point. The point is, can Lisa train people enough so that they're all doing white belt shit, and she's sort of walking around monitoring. I mean, having people go in to approach their restrictions, it's not that difficult. You know, being the anchor isn't that difficult. You know, in my world, we don't need her level of neuro emotional, psychosurgery yet. And so how does she, I mean, you could do a whole weekend of just of people doing this and then flipping. Be in the morning, you take people on a dive. It's like a holotropic breath work. In the morning, you take people for a dive. You spend 2.5 hours in the middle eating lunch and getting back in your bodies and all that. And the afternoon, you flip.
In a week, we're doing like a connection unconference that Lisa's supporting and like co-orchestrating. We're wondering what that might look like concretely in, I mean, I guess you just did one there, but like in service of this. And also the key uncertainty question here is like, how do we have that energetically juicy for everybody where Lisa's so developed along this path? And there's a lot of people, of course, who want to learn from her, which makes sense. But how do we have that energetically sustaining for her and or something that's also accessible for other people?
That's something that she needs to suss out. She's, from over here, she's up here and she's saying, all I need to do is have the space to do this 6 times. And you're like, that's bullshit. And she's like, shut the fuck up, Alton. That this is a question for her. You do not understand where she's at, Alton. Okay? I don't know if she knows how to talk about where she's at with people like you. She may be really good at it. She may be really pissy about it. I don't know.
Hmm. I feel just responsible for creating like crisp containers and clearings for people to step into where I know that Lisa's needs will be met and that Steve's going to get some of the opportunities to deepen what he'd like to as well. And to also have that like confer benefit to the whole ecosystem as well as other facilitators and people who want to learn from Lisa and like how to
First of
design that.
all, assume that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Doesn't matter what you do, some of that will be happening. Now, the question is, can you take it from 0.3 to maybe a 4 or maybe a 10? That's another question. No matter what happens, if you guys can get a weekend together, all of those things are going to happen. Is Lisa going to need to work on actually fine-tuning her own internal support system through you guys? Absolutely. Are you going to stick your foot up your ass and do something horrific, Alton? Absolutely. Is Steve going to shit himself and say, next time I'm going to bring the pens? Probably. Okay. So what you're doing is you're providing a container where people can meet outside of the context of their prefrontal cortex. This is this is holotropic breath work. People are coming together, they're engaging in an exercise, they're getting to places where they don't normally go to. They're seeing each other as human beings with Groff wandering around being crazy. And people come out saying, oh my gosh. And the structure is, the meta framework is these things don't have to be blind constrictions on your way of being in the world. You guys can actually learn that you think this is normal because this is all you've done in your life. But we're going to give you a chance to where you can actually go like this. And you're going to go, holy cow. When I first learned that I could cry in public, I cried for 3 days in Boston. Not a good place to cry. Okay. Not a good place to cry at all. And then the follow-up is, okay, guys, we were in the sacred temple and we did this. You probably don't want to do this in your social structures because they're used to you doing this. So what's the learning that you can take away from your weekend in that you can bring a little bit more of stretching your wings? And you backfill it with danger stories. Well, people who flew too close to the sun on their first trip. You know, they took too much ayahuasca and their heads exploded. You know, make it dangerous, make it thrilling. You bloom really well, Lisa.
Thank you for your attunement. I feel it.
I'd much rather make it about your blooming than my attunement. Just personal preference.
Both and.
See, now you know what 36 double D looks like to Lisa. Both and. Inclusivity. Don't want Lisa up on the podium or anything. God, no. That would be terrible. Oh, Jesus, 25 more minutes. God.
Don't tell me you're already tired from dancing. I haven't even started yet. What are you talking about?
No, I'm sick. Thank God for NyQuil. Oh.
Do you have any intuitions around what Sophia Jean Caring and Lisa might dance around specifically when Sophia Jean's here?
I would pay good money to see that knife fight.
Knife fight. Okay.
Oh my God. Wow.
Can you orient me on that? Who are you talking, what was that?
There's a woman by the name of Sophia Jean that I've been dancing with for, I don't know, 6-7 years. She's one of the best bladers, a cutter that I've ever met. But when I first met her, that was sort of part of her deep psychopathology. Then she went off to meditation land, and she's gotten a little softer and a little bit more. But she has that, and I think the same of you, Lisa. I don't think that you beat people to death. I think that you have a blade, and I really appreciate the finesse of that. I think that if they could get on, if they could find a team sport that they could both participate in, I think they would be an amazing team. And I think that my personal opinion is that they have both been damaged by the patriarchy in such a way that they think that they have to be solo acts. And so I think that would be a difficulty. But
am I one of the theys? No. Who are the theys?
I think that in breaking out of your patriarchal torture room, that you set it up to where you had to be a solo act.
In the past, that is true, but I'm done with that.
Oh. See that little thing there? I am just like, oh. Wow.
Yeah, this seems like a really ripe area. I also want to acknowledge, Lisa, you mentioned you didn't really want to get coaching earlier, but I'm like, it's going to be in that territory. I imagine it's going to be really hard.
I am not. I am not coaching her at all. I'm hinting.
I don't feel it as coaching. I just feel it as interacting.
Oh,
okay.
Be careful, young lady.
Yeah.
Yeah. Double eyebrow raise.
Warned.
Yeah.
Warned.
Do you okay? Do you have a do you have a lineage?
Of
Oh,
teaching
Jesus
or
Christ. Oh man, no, the other stuff.
no. Can you be more I have lots of lineages. Familial, educational. Tell me more. Ask me more specifically.
Okay, so in the West, spiritual is like an up and to the left, up and to the right. If you can do spiritual and go down and in, that's what I'm talking about. I know you're not Lakota.
Oh no, I'm not. And in fact, I have only a little native blood, and the native blood I have is Adawa from the East Coast, but I'm actually mostly Japanese and French.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Do you know geisha?
The concept of it,
The
like
embodiment
what it
of it,
is.
but
Yeah, I mean, I don't. That's not a particular word that I use, but I know the direction you're heading. I think. Yeah,
courtesan. Do you know that
yeah,
one?
I can relate. Uh-huh. You can relate to that. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sick. I need to back up a little bit. I think holy crap. Man. Um is it lonely?
Oh, that is such a
Man,
good question. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Truly.
Mm, thank you.
I really appreciate the quality of your dance that you're doing. And in my world, you don't have the right kind of mirrors. They're all skewed. And so I just want to express my appreciation for the quality of what you're creating, even with the lack of adequate mirrors.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, there's Yokin. There's 34 double D's going by. Steve. So both Steve and Yokin have been hijacked. Alton's focused on something else.
Or you said Stave. I heard Stave, not Steve.
Steve.
What I'm with, hi guys. What I'm
Yeah.
with is that you started with the conversation about polarity, and it was a non-polarized conversation. It was just sort of masculine, 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 masculine. And then when you, Cray, started to acknowledge Lisa's beauty and her gifts and her, her qualities, then you, Lisa, started to bloom. And then there was an aliveness and a beauty and a power with that dance that you guys just did. It was so beautiful. It was like the mature masculine bowing to the mature feminine. It's gorgeous.
It's always fun bowing when at any moment the axe could come down.
Well, that's because you're a counterphobic six.
Yeah.
Hmm. All right. Well, thank you guys. I really, I really love that last piece so much. And I gotta go. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Well, that does seem like a pretty good wrap for live. I'm like, I feel pretty good about completing the live stream part while we're ahead here. So, is anything else we want to debrief? I will do that off live here.